Hello, folks. Welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. I appreciate you guys listening, and I hope wherever you are, you're staying safe, you're wearing a mask, taking care of those around you, because as I know you know, this is the way we get through this. This is talking to you guys right now. This is the highlight of what has been a very stressful week. For reasons that I can't really get into, mostly professional, but. Nothing is amiss. My fiance and I still love each other. We are navigating. There's currently a tropical storm hitting New York City as I'm recording this. I believe we might be in the eye of it before the rain continues. So I'm just really happy to be talking to you guys right now. I want to, before we get into the meat of the show here today, I want to let everybody know that I have. With the assistance of my designer friend in Chile, Matthews, I have created some Between Awesome and Disaster merchandise on the website teespring.com. So if you are interested in supporting the show another way, you can go to teespring.com, search Between Awesome and Disaster. I'll have links in the description as well. I have face masks available. I have hoodies and t-shirts. I tried to keep the prices a little bit lower than regular margins, so hopefully there's something there that appeals to you. And it was designed by my very talented friend in Chile, Matthew. You can hire him. I believe his website is theuglyideas.com. You can get some design work done, and I would highly recommend hiring him, because not only is he a great guy to work with, he does amazing work. As you can see, if you go out check out the Teespring shop, I didn't want to sell anything with my face on it because I find that very egotistical. So he not only did the artwork for the show with my face, but we also we also collaborated on an alternate version where I am replaced with a cute teddy bear, because that is what I've always kind of viewed myself internally as. So you can check that out as well. But to get into the meat of the show today, I'm very excited to share this with you. My guest on the show today is Chris Fafalios, who is the bass player for the power pop punk band Punchline. You might know their album 37 Everywhere, but they've continued to make incredibly excellent albums. Their most recent one being titled Lion. And I got hooked up with Chris after my episode with Chris DeMakes from Less Than Jake. And I was actually quite surprised to find out just how much we have in common, me and Chris Fafalios, because we have a lot of the same tastes in music, in basses, in stand-up comedy, and and particularly if you've listened to the show regularly, you know I'm kind of obsessed with discovering like the rock and alternative music of Japan, where Punchline have toured, and we get into that a little bit as well. So this is going to be a fun one. There is one hilarious difference of opinion we have, which we will hear as well, which I found quite hilarious in the moment. So you'll definitely there's a lot here to enjoy that I'm excited to share with you. Chris, in addition to playing in Punchline, Chris has a podcast called One Hit Thunder, where he discusses one-hit wonders, which I have started listening to recently and really, really enjoy. And I'm hopefully a little preview for you guys. You may hear me on that podcast relatively soon. So we're going to get into it today. I want to let you guys know, and I do apologize for this. I was, during the conversation for the first half, I was having some internet connection issues. So the first part of this, it gets better about halfway through, but there are some connection issues that I was experiencing during this interview. So I do apologize for the audio quality, and sorry about that. So I will continue to refine my techniques so that I can continue to give you guys the best show that you deserve, because I really appreciate that you guys are here. And this was a really fun conversation. So let's get into it and go to my chat with Chris Fafalios of Punchline. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So you're saying Punchline has toured with lots of ska bands, despite not being a ska band. It kind of
Right.
makes sense to me, because like going back and like re-listening to the catalog. I Even though I think you guys kind of fit in very neatly with like the punk and like Warped Tour alternative scene, I always saw you guys as maybe more of like a hyped up like power pop kind of band. Does that make sense?
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. And the reason I say that is because we always feel lucky that when you look at the tours we did back coronavirus, the last the last tours we did right in a row were um, Gin Blossoms, Less Than Jake, Spill Canvas. So we toured with a a pop a pop band. Then
Yeah,
we
yeah.
toured with a ska band. Then we toured with an emo band, and yet we could still fit on those bills and still appeal to the fans of those bands. So I feel lucky that we're able to not be so pigeonholed into one style of music, and that we're able to play with all kinds of different bands that we like and that we're influenced by. So yeah, that's always been a pretty cool thing in our world.
Yeah, it makes complete sense to me, because like coming from the comedy world, like if you're booking a stand up show or a comedy show, you don't want to have a bunch of comics that are going to talk about the same thing in the exact same kind of style. You want to have a little bit of variety
Right.
on the show, so that everybody kind of gets the same kind of deal. So that makes total sense to me. I wanted to ask you, so when you started out playing bass, we were talking about the influence of Less Than Jake. And if I get Roger on the show, I'd love to ask him this as well, because I started out playing guitar, and for a long time I was like very comfortably like just holding on to the root note for dear life whenever I would be playing bass in songs. So when you were learning bass and like playing along to ska, what were some like what were some early songs? What were like some technique things you learned from playing bass to that music?
Dude, I always talk about this, how lucky I was to be a a a boy who is very comfortable at a time when ska music became, so popular. Found out about it because instead of, like you're saying, instead of punk rock songs where it was you're just riding the root note, instead I was learning, Rogers bass lines and Operation Ivy bass lines and Goldfinger bass lines and whoever else. And you know so right off the bat was being challenged as a bass player before I even knew that, like, oh, songs you to play the bass lines. You can just have songs that are straightforward and maybe root note with a little bit of extension on it. But yeah, I feel very lucky that from a very young age I was influenced by this music where the bass lines are pretty badass. you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like when I learned like I guess one of my early tricks was like picking up like playing fifths, like Mark Hoppus bass lines. You can always just do the little do 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 do.
Right.
And my bassist in my band in high school was very influential. He was like really into new metal, which was really big at the time. So he loved Mudvayne and lots of like slapping and pops and stuff, like things to
Right.
kind of zhuzh it up a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
so you start on that, and I wanted to ask you, like, where did you grow up? Like, where are you from? I
Well, I'm from a suburb of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Uh
It
huh.
was called Bell Vernon, Pennsylvania, which is about, I don't know, half an hour south of Pittsburgh.
Uh huh.
And then, eventually when I went to college, moved to actual proper Pittsburgh and have
Yeah.
lived in the general area my whole life since.
Gotcha. Yeah, Pittsburgh is a hotbed for a lot of really great music. I was talking to Chris and Justin from Anti-Flag. The punk scene in Pittsburgh just sounds like really excellent as a product of the condition of the city, at least when they were growing up.
Right, right. I mean, especially anti-flag style punk rock, very, very popular in our area. It's a lot of what you saw. I feel like Pittsburgh was a little bit of a challenging music town. It's not Chicago, it's not Philly, it's not New York City, it's not LA. It's definitely a smaller town, and I think you just have to work harder. You're from a place like Pittsburgh, and I'm not complaining. I love it. Pittsburgh to this day is still our place to play, and I love it. And we've watched our grow, from clubs to just in general, and seeing places become cooler and cooler. It's a great for cultural things, and as that grows, you see the music grow because bands and artists have more outlets and places to play, and more support from people. But it's definitely, in general, especially when you're starting out, it's a little tough. You got to work a little extra harder to make people hear. You got to get in their faces, But that could be said of anywhere, really. But but definitely my favorite city on earth, despite anything like that.
Right on. Can you tell me what was when you were growing up? Did you have an epiphany kind of moment when it comes to punk rock or alternative music?
So I would say that my transition, I was just talking to Chris DeMakes about this recently, but I grew up loving, as a little kid, I loved R&B music and hip hop. I loved Boyz II Men. So at some point there, when I was a kid, I made the transition from, which I still love Boyz II Men, and I still love R&B music, but somehow as a preteen into teen, I made the transition. And I think it may have slowly gone from like Red Hot Chili Peppers. I remember getting that Red Hot Chili Peppers Blood Sugar Sex Magic, first album I ever got with a parental advisory sticker on it.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
And
totally. And I think from there, I kind of, strangely enough, and I think I can credit Beavis and Butthead for this, which I don't know if you saw it today. Beavis and Butthead is coming back. They just announced they're bringing it back.
Oh, no, I didn't see that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they just announced that like a couple hours ago.
Excellent.
But through Beavis and Butthead, I found out about so much music. And one of those bands, which I remember loving in middle school and I still love today, was Ween. Like, Ween kind of changed the way I looked at music. And then obviously along came Green Day and Weezer, and then from there it was punk rock. I just fell into punk rock like every Fat Records band, every Epitaph band, every Lookout Records band. Like from there, I just fell in love with punk rock, started a punk rock band, just, and that's pretty much, I think that was my transition there, like very, very much the alternative bands that I first heard and got me to listen to something other than R&B music.
Oh yeah. And R&B, and like cuz I grew up like listening to like Motown and like the Big Chill soundtrack. That's all
hell yeah.
Yeah, man.
Hell yeah.
Like those songs are all incredible, and especially like to get into playing bass later, like that music is all, I feel, very bass driven. Like if you have no bass on an R&B song, you don't have anything.
Dude, yeah, tell me about it. That old Motown, the Big Chill soundtrack. It's so funny you say that. My parents had that record. Remember listening to that record, heard it through the grapevine. What are they? I believe they're called the Funk Brothers. I might need a fact check on that. But the people that basically played on every Motown song. There was same band playing on every Motown song. But yeah, man, you're talking about the best musicians of all time. And that so bass driven. And I think that is why today, like, I like all the new R&B so much. It's so bass driven. Like Frank Ocean, one of my favorite artists of all time. And he's still a relatively new artist, only has two albums and a mixtape, but like, it's just the bass and I don't know if it's because I'm a bassist, but I love that bass, and I love feeling the kick drum when I'm in my car. And I think that's why, like, I don't know, I don't want to say sadly, but my taste has moved so much to contemporary R&B and hip hop and stuff, just because that I just love listening to it in my car. I love feeling that kick in my chest. And I personally have gotten away a little bit from punk rock. I still like it, but I feel like that's more my niche these days of what I listen to anyway,
Oh yeah. Totally. Like, I feel like when I'm listening to bass or when I'm listening to drums, those are the two instruments I feel like, even if it's outside what you're really into or what you're playing, I feel like bassists and drummers have a greater appreciation. Like when I first heard of Billie Eilish, and I was like, and I heard Bad Guy, I was like, okay, that bass line is killer. Like that's the whole groove of the song. I
Right.
will always have a soft spot in my heart for like 180 beats per minute
Yeah.
D beat.
Yeah,
um,
for sure.
but I have made a concentrated effort to not get stuck in the ways of my past and to always be excited about new things. Because
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a product of being in my mid 30s now, but I feel like every generation says about the music when they were 16 is like, oh, that's when all the real music was. All this other stuff is
Yeah.
terrible, and it's a pattern I'm trying very hard to avoid. So you're growing up in Pittsburgh. You're loving punk rock, and then so this is probably like when you're a teenager by this point. When does Punchline start to come together?
We formed in 1997, and all youngsters. But it's crazy because I've talked about this too. Punchline, and we were Punchline, and most people when they start their first band will have like 5, 10, 20 bands they have before they're in their band that they like, you know, tour in and
Yeah, it
stay in
becomes the
forever.
thing.
I stayed in my first band forever and still am in my first band. Which it's a blessing and a curse because it's very cool that, we've been in this band since we were little kids. But what's not good about that is when once in a while someone brings your really old music. I always worry, like, if someone hears a Punchline and wants to check us out, because they've heard about us, that
Yeah,
they might just randomly stumble across some really old song and be like, man, you suck. So,
sure.
for the most part, we try to make sure that old stuff isn't so much on the internet, but I'm sure you could still find it if you try hard enough, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's given in this age, everything we've ever made will come back to haunt us. Like I still have
Yeah.
like old stand up sets from like my first like year in comedy, and I am just talking so slow, and I don't have any inflection in my voice. I sound like Daria. uh,
Hey, that works for some people, man.
it does. Like, I some of that kind of got beaten out of me in New York City because like doing jokes in comedy clubs in New York, you just kind of have to like, you feel like you're always fighting the audience. I don't know if it feels the same way doing music gigs, but
Oh yeah.
whenever I'm at clubs, I feel like a gladiator, and I'm just like, oh, you think you're gonna beat me? No, no.
Yeah.
Here's a witty observation I had on the subway here. Touche, sir.
Right. Dude, I can't, and you're going up there and doing that yourself, which I'm doing it with 3 of my buddies. So it's kind
Hmm.
of like you have this team and we're all going to perform, but it is the same kind of thing, especially when it's playing to a new crowd that doesn't know you. You have that thing, like it's almost like a sport or something. Like you're out there and you got to
Yeah.
win them over. But I mean, I got a lot of respect for comedians being able to go up there and do that, because I'm sure every comedian that I hear interviewed ever has the stories about bombing so many times and how you just have to do that. Well, dude, if I went up there and bombed one time, I think I'd be like, all right, I'm good on this. So I got a lot of respect for that, man. That's a serious, really putting yourself out there sort of thing. And you know, and not everyone has the same sense of humor, which I guess you could say the same thing about music. Not everyone has the same sense of music, but at least in music, yeah, if we're touring with Les and Jake, we know that at least our music is similar enough to Les and Jake's that we have a good chance of winning over anyone in that crowd. Whereas I don't know if that's the same for you, man. Maybe you're performing with comedians that are somewhat in the same vein of you or something, but still, I think it's tough, man. It has to be tough, right?
Yeah, because there's a certain grim. I kind of approach it two ways depending on the situation. There is a certain grim pride to continuing to bomb, being you. So at least you can say you failed on your own terms. But there is also where I think a lot of the job comes in from, like working comics that I talk to, is being able to adapt to the situation and succeed, even if it means like, say you've worked on your act and you have all these jokes really well written and the crowd's just not having it, so you gotta like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna make stuff up and make fun of everyone in the room until I hit 45 minutes.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's very, yeah, I can't imagine doing that on the fly. I mean, do you always have like some backup material in your head, like an acoustic artist would have if he was playing at a bar and people were like not feeling the songs he was playing? Do you always or are you you're improv sometimes?
it's like I say, I always go up with an outline, and then if and then tweak based on response is generally how I try to approach it. There are times when you end up going down paths that, like, oh, I had no idea I was going to be talking about this, but here we are. So you definitely have plenty of times like that.
Yeah. Where does your taste lie in, I play music, but then, I like so much music. I feel, who are some of your favorites? I'm interested to know, like, who's those people that you're like, shit, that's amazing.
For comics, my favorite, probably one of my favorite comics of all time, even though he's been dead for a long time, is Mitch Hedberg, because I just
Dude, he's
loved
my
his.
number one.
I
Dude,
think,
he's my number one. Not to interrupt you, but he's my number one.
yeah, he's my favorite of all time. And in a similar vein, Dimitri Martin is the first comic I saw that made me want to do stand up. Where I was like,
Amazing.
that counts. Then I want to do that.
Dude, amazing. Hey, you know who I love?
Who's that?
Joe Perry.
Joe Pera.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Joe from like the open mic days here. I love him. He's hysterical. I love that dude.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. He's
so, dude, we have the same taste in stand-up comedians. Dimitri Martin would have been the other one I would have brought up.
Oh yeah, sure. We're like on the same wavelength, man. I'm digging this. And
hell yeah, man.
Yeah. And so when Punchline started, was bass your first instrument? Do you play anything else?
Yeah, it was basically, it's funny, when I was a kid I played hockey, and the team needed a goalie, so I was like, okay, I'll be goalie. And then I was goalie for all the time, for years and years of playing hockey. And same thing with a band. It was like, okay, we're going to start a band. Well, we need a bass player. All right, well, I'll be the bass player. I'll go buy a bass. It's funny. When I bought a bass, I didn't know what a bass. I found out what a bass was and bought a bass the same day. Like I didn't even know like the difference between a bass and a guitar. I was still a young kid, and like then I found out what a bass was because of the bass. And yeah, that's how long I've been in Punchline and played bass.
I love that though. I love that this is the thing, and you've continued to tour with all of these great bands and write these great albums, and like have style and have like stylistic experiments and changes. That's really cool to me, because at a certain point, and I feel this way about comedy also, like, trends can come and go. There's times when like Warped Tour style bands are part of the popular conscious, and then there are times when that's not really the case. Same way, like if you're a comedian, you can have a year where you'll get on TV, maybe you'll do a book and do some other stuff, but then that can go away after a few years. But then you're still out there doing the job, and I think after a certain point, just continuing to do the job is something to be applauded and celebrated, even though it's not the sexiest part of show business.
I totally think too, another thing, and this can be applied to comedy, I'm sure, is when you write music, and we make a real conscious decision to do this now, is to always be trying to write songs that can be timeless and not so much dated. And I'm sure this thing can be applied to comedy. Like if you're going up and making jokes about like what happened in the news, that's not so timeless.
Right.
Same thing with music. Like if I'm trying to sound like what is popular at that moment, I'm already too late. By the time I write, record, and release that, then that whatever sound isn't gonna be cool. And so I think it's better to just try to be yourself, be authentic to yourself, and make something you're at least to make that it would sound good 30 years from now. That no matter, the time doesn't have a lot to do with it. It's just a good song,
Yeah, I agree with that. So that by the time like the 10-year anniversary comes around, you're not embarrassed to be playing
Right. Right.
playing those songs. And then so Punchline, and you start playing around Pittsburgh. How long I'm so curious about like your experience like getting on Fueled by Ramen, because they have put out some of my favorite albums and bands. So
Hell yeah.
so Punchline starring, you're playing around Pittsburgh and up and down the East Coast maybe.
Yeah, we, way before we were on a record label or anything, we made, like any young band, we were sending our CDs out to every record label that we wanted to be on. And then we
Yeah.
were seeing like, nobody really seems that interested. So we made the conscious decision to be like, don't care. We're going to release our albums ourselves. We did the whole like getting in people's faces at shows with a little disc man
Yeah,
and
yeah.
putting the headphones on and selling CDs for $5. And we were really good at that. And
Yeah,
like
yeah.
really like had that connection with people face to face. And in our hometown, you'll see people not like this, but whatever, like you'll see, and I laziness, if you complain about this, I can see the argument against it. I haven't said what it is yet. But so in our hometown of Pittsburgh, we were able to get on really good shows because we were willing to take 50 or 100 tickets and quickly go out and sell those tickets to people that wanted to go to that show maybe. So
Uh-huh.
basically we were saving them the service fee or whatever because we were delivering the tickets. But because we would do that, the promoters wanted us on the shows. And bands didn't do that. Why would the promoters be inclined to want them on the show as opposed to a band who would go out there and work, pass out flyers, talk to people, work at the show. So we like really hustled when we were young at doing that. So then
Yeah.
we'd get to play a show like the Get Up Kids would come and we'd get to open for the Get Up Kids and like play in front of 1,000 people. And that gave us our base in Pittsburgh of being able to make our own shows be Pittsburgh. And then we could use the money we'd make from those shows to do things like buy a van and fund self-booked tours where, yeah, you'll have hit or miss shows that were good here and there, but to be able to financially afford to have 5 bad shows in a row and play in front of 10 people and stuff like that. So we did that for years and years. And that's how, we would link up with the bands and people that will be our friends for years and years to come. And like, that's how we met bands like Bayside and our friends from Florida, Unsung Zeros, and even Fall Out Boy. That's the first time we met them. And so you did these things. And then we kind of figured if we kept doing this, self-releasing out, touring as much as possible and playing every VFW, fire, barn, dog kennel, person's house, roller rink, all those things. We played everywhere. We just kind of figured eventually, like, play in front of the right person. Eventually, that worked. A girl who liked us named Amanda Yu. She was Fueled by Ramen Street Team, and she told them about us. And then a couple people that worked at the label came and saw us when we played a show in, I guess it was in Gainesville. Yeah, I think it was in Gainesville that we played. So they came and saw us, and then we got offered a deal with Fueled by Ramen, and that was awesome. And I felt real proud about how that happened, because it was just basically we were going about it as if a record label, even if a record label never came along, we were just going to do our thing as long as it took, and that worked out for us.
Yeah, like the label was just a bonus. It was never the goal, because you hear so many like tragic stories in the music industry about all these great bands that no one ever that don't, I guess, get as big as they should have, and it feels like the label is the end goal on occasion.
Yeah, and I think that especially now, man, if you write a great song and you put the effort into marketing yourself and especially in a clever way, I think any song, regardless of if a label's involved or if anyone's involved, if you write an amazing song and you are clever and know how to market yourself, you can be popular because everyone in the world has access to every song ever written on their phones at all times.
Yes.
You know, it's not that someone necessarily has to see you play in their little town, which kind of used to be the way it is. Someone had to see you and they had to purchase your CD. Well, now all people have to know is your name and they can look you up. And I don't know, you can look at it as a good thing or a bad thing. I prefer to look at it as a good thing.
No, so do I. That's the whole reason that I have been able to go down a rabbit hole of Japanese pop punk for the last 5 years, because that's where my taste is right now. There's so many great bands out there.
Dude.
I was never going to find them if I did not have, again, all access to all recorded music at all times.
Right.
It's just a matter of it's the trick is now, and that's something I'm trying to learn with my band is how is the marketing aspect of it, because my guitarist is the creative genius and I've essentially become the de facto marketing person. So,
well, dude, I mean, I think such a big part. And it's funny, I just heard an interview with Phoebe Bridgers last week where she was talking about this, but like humor is such a big thing that you can incorporate into music and the marketing of music. Punchline has always done that. Mm-hmm. That's like been a big thing for us. That you know, if you can make people laugh. Now I'm not saying you have to be Weird Al and make them laugh at your song, but at the same time, you know, when it comes to music videos or clever promos or, you know, or even incorporating humor into your song. Once again, I'm not saying that you have to make funny songs, but like having that cleverness, you'll find that cleverness in Weaker Than's lyric, Def Cab lyrics and things like that.
Yeah.
I think that's important, man. I think that like just how I hear Drake will rap how like you know, sports go hand in hand. I feel like, you know, like rock music and comedy kind of go hand in hand in a way. You know, so I think there's always ways to use that to your advantage. You make people laugh, man. It's pretty important. It's pretty.
Yeah, it's a powerful thing, and then I think especially in pop punk and punk rock, especially because the debate about like England versus the UK, but like the Ramones were effectively, I think, almost like cartoon characters come to life, and like Blink grabbed me not only because their music was good, but also because they were making dirty jokes and making fun of each other. So I think there's a 100% there's a lot of links in there, and their videos were always kind of funny, even if the songs weren't like exactly like you were saying, Weird Al Yankovic funny.
Right, exactly. It all goes hand in hand for sure.
Oh, definitely. And so you get on Fueled by Ramen. 37 Everywhere is a great record. I still love that record to this day. And then I'm curious, and I think it kind of makes sense because your albums after 37 Everywhere, I feel like I heard like some more like Beatles or pop kind of influences.
Oh yeah,
which I enjoyed as well. Conscious decision or just kind of where you were at the time?
I think that every step of the way with our band, I think I can say this pretty confidently. Whatever music we were making was because, for lack of a better way to put it, it was because coming out of us naturally. Those were the songs we were writing, and you know, I don't think we were constantly trying to like fit in with what was popular or whatever. We just kind of we wrote what we liked. We've always what we want to listen to. I only pick out a few songs from the catalog, our back catalog, which is pretty big at this point, where I'm like, I would never listen to that. You know, I think we're always going to write something that we enjoy, and I think that's like the ultimate test. We're sitting on a bunch of new songs right now, getting ready to make a new album, and it's a real test, especially like if you had a song recorded for 6 months or so, am I still listening to that song when I'm alone? Am I still putting that song on sometimes and enjoy it? If there's no, then maybe the song shouldn't go to their album, you know?
Sure.
The answer is yes. then yeah, because you should be judged if good or not. Like I think I'm able to separate myself and judge like that way. It's very complicated, man, because there's also a fine line between a really good song and a song that's fun to play. A song could be like complex and fun to play, but that doesn't necessarily make like pleasing to the listeners either, you know? So yeah, there's a lot to think about there. But back to your question, I think that it's always just what we were inspired, right? And it wasn't so much on like, oh, we need to get famous, you know?
No, yeah, absolutely. And, you know, that's always been, I think, kind of where the best songs come from. I'm going to kill my video, just try to save a little bandwidth here. But cool. But yeah, I agree too. Because at that point, if you're just writing songs to be famous, you should, at that point, it's a job. And then you should just go have like a job.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree.
That's something that I've kind of always felt as well. And what kind of and what kind of basses do you tend to play? Do you what are some of your favorite instruments that you have?
I play a Fender jazz bass always. You know, back 10 plus years ago, I played a Music Man, Ernie Ball, and Stingray. I'm just exclusively the same as bass. It's funny, for how I've played music, I only have 2 basses, and it's those 2. And I love the way basses sound, and I love the way they play, and I love the way they look. So if I 5 more bands, probably of them would be just more jazz basses.
Yeah, every time I try to play anything that isn't either like a Fender Jazz or a Fender Precision, I'm always like, it doesn't sound right. I've tried to play like the other great basses that people say. I've tried to play Stingrays, and I've tried to play Thunderbirds, be like Nikki Sixx,
right?
And it just doesn't work. Doesn't feel right to me. I kind of like having that like Fender, that growly kind of mid-rangey sound. Yeah, man. And this has also been the first year where I was like, you know what, it's time. And I started using some pedals to get that extra sort of like, I almost play like a distorted bass these days, just because I just love how badass it sounds, man. So, you know, and then the thing about the Stingrays are awesome basses, man. Don't get me wrong. But the thing about them that I noticed is that we call it amongst ourselves like Warped Tour bass. It's like, it's just this really bright, clangy bass where the sound of it just sounds like Warped Tour. Not saying that that's like necessarily a bad thing, but especially like a lot of the style of our last few albums for Punchline, like it just didn't fit, you know, it just sounded like out of place. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean when you say Warped Tour sound. Like I can hear that sound like coming from like the Vans, well, it's probably not the Vans stage, but one of those, the Smart Punk stage. I know exactly what you're talking about. Like it's not round at all, like the mids are all the way up, which I actually I like that, because like guitars had that period where especially in metal, where like all the mids were gone and you could not hear the bass at all, like that everyone heard Injustice for All at the same time. And started doing that. So I like that trend in basses, but I know exactly what you mean. The same way, like when I think of like a Warped Tour kind of day, like there's a chord progression that always comes to my mind, that like da-da 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 that gets the whole crowd, that gets the crowd jumping up and down.
Right. Yeah, like 1 5 4 5, I think that is. Yeah. That. Oh man, yeah. That's so funny you say that. I've heard that, whatever that is, from so many bands. I went, you know, you could just walk around, not even know who the bands are playing, and hear that, what you just described. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Come on, bounce with me, everybody.
Exactly. Yeah, like jump them down. Yeah, I know. My other favorite thing I like to pick out when I'm listening to punk rock now is like, I like trying to hear like, okay, so when they play this live, this is where you would get the like, hey,
right.
chant going.
Right.
This is
Yeah.
very
Every cliche, you could have walked around Warped Tour and heard some band on a smaller stage doing every, stereotypical thing you would expect.
mhm. I mean, I still
Not
love.
complaining. I'm not complaining, man. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying.
Oh no, no. I love all of that stuff. Like I remember at a certain point, like, okay, this is like you start. Okay, this is I started judging like songs by different bands. Like, okay, this is their take on this style, and oh, this is the
Right.
Get Out of This Town with My Friends song. I want to see how
Yeah.
they do that. Like I love all of it still. I don't know what that says about my about my mental state, but that stuff like that was like the like I was saying earlier, that was the soundtrack to like me discovering myself. So I'll always have
Right.
a soft spot for that kind of stuff.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you because also because I was doing a little research about Punchline. I don't know how factually accurate this is, but it's are you guys like popular in Japan? Because I've been to Japan a couple of times, and my entire goal and plan for my band currently is to get us big in Japan someday.
Yeah, we've always done pretty well there. We've been there 4 times, and
Oh, nice.
I'll never forget I have so many videos and stuff of it. And I still can't believe this stuff. I guess when it was happening, it was like all part of a whirlwind of other things. So, it was exciting, but now looking back on it, it's even more like, whoa. But the first time we went there, it was this label called Big Mouth, who put out a lot of the albums of like Fueled by Ramen bands and really did a good job of like making people hear it. I think it was one of those labels over there where it's like, oh, if you're on Big Mouth, people are automatically interested. Like, how
Right.
people don't really care so much about record labels now, but there was definitely a time where there were certain record labels where you checked out every band on that label because whether it was because of comps or whether because you just trusted like, oh, I like all the other bands on this label. So I kind of think Big Mouth had that thing going.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first time we went there was with Fall Out Boy. We had just both signed to Fueled by Ramen. And I remember, landing there and we first got into Tokyo and people came up to us. I have videos of it. People came up to us like excited, but we couldn't speak the language. And then they would pull out a sign that said like Punchline on it. We're like, oh my God, like really? And then I remember going to a record store and there were us and Fall Out Boy's albums. I have pictures of this too. And there was a cutout of our band, like all these CDs and like, like a record store cutout of us, of the 4 of us. I was like, oh my God. And then the most amazing thing, which, we got to experience it over and over going back, but was like the first show we ever played there. We were touring on our album Action, which was our first full length on Fueled by Ramen. And the first song, it's called Open Up. And it's basically, it comes to a part where the first vocals on the album, all the music cuts out and it's just vocals for a few seconds.
Yeah.
And we opened with that song at this small packed club in Shibuya. And we came to that part and the entire crowd sang along in English. And that was just like unbelievable, like the most amazing thing that happened to me in my life at that point. Like all people that, maybe only know a little tiny bit of English singing along in English. It's really awesome, man. And yeah, that's a really good goal to just to be able to go to Japan and play music. It's, I've ever since been in love with everything, with Japanese culture, everything, and you brought up Japanese music earlier. Like, man, oh man, do you know Otoboke Beaver? Do you know them?
I do not know them, but let's go down this rabbit hole because I love talking about Japanese bands. What are they called?
They're called Otoboke Beaver. They're an all-female like punk rock band that are like the punkest punk rock band. It's like Otoboke Beaver, and they're just unbelievable, amazing. The other Japanese band that I am like obsessed with is Maximum the Hormone. Do you know Maximum the Hormone?
No, I do not. Maximum the
dude.
Hormone. Nice.
Dude, That's another band that's just like totally insane. The closest, I mean, I like them way better than System of a Down, but I would compare them to System of a Down in like the craziness of the music. But that's a band worth checking out too. You got, especially music videos. You got to check out their music videos. They're just absolutely insane, and just so creative. And also another one of those bands, like we were talking about, like using humor and how you promote your music.
Uh-huh.
When you watch their music videos, you'll get what I'm getting at with that. That band also did the theme song for the anime of Death Note. If you've ever seen or watched that, they did the theme for that, and they're just the most badass band, man.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes, I love Death Note. That's like anime song. Anime is how I discovered several of these bands.
Right.
This band Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas that did the the first ending theme for the anime Hunter x Hunter, and it's just this. I think it's I can't remember the title of the song off the top of my head, but it's the parts in this song are bizarre. It has this heavy like metalcore verse with tons of like screaming. It opens up to this like huge giant chorus. It has this weird synth like attack style techno thing going on in the back of the main riff. Then it has like a jazz piano bridge before leading into like a metalcore breakdown. It is the soundtrack to like what's going on inside someone with schizophrenia's brain.
Right.
And it's just so bizarre sounding. Like all of this kind of like there's so much weird like jazzy math rock kind of stuff. Like if Tiny Moving Parts are doing math rock, then like the math rock in Japan is like a advanced form of algebra. I could never
right.
figure out.
Yeah, man, for sure. That's, it is that blend of like, the Japanese bands that I'm sure there's tons that I don't know about, but the ones I know about and I like and I listen to, it is that the technical aspect of it, the musicianship, but then it's also those soaring choruses that seem to just like be so over the top and major and just make you feel so good. That it's like it's hard to describe it, because you'll find that in J-pop a lot. In J-pop, it's just so bubblegum and so like it just makes you feel so good. But you'll find that crossover in punk rock, and it's just so cool. Dude, that band, a good example of it is that band Baby Metal.
Yes, I know Baby Metal.
Yeah, like the choruses are just, it's always like these heavy verses and shredding guitars, and then they come to the choruses and it's just these J-pop choruses, for lack of a better way to put it. And it's just incredible, man. Amazing.
Oh yeah, like the choruses get like so big, like they're a little like sometimes they're a halftime feel. Another band I really like is and I talk about them on this podcast a lot because I've never loved a band so quickly and so immediately as this band. There's a group called the Winking Owl in Japan. They just put out their most recent full length was called Thank You Love Letter. It was my favorite album of last year.
Wow.
I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed that album. I would describe them as what's the best way to phrase it? They kind of blend like the more like emotional side of post-hardcore with like Japanese pop and pop punk. So there's imagine Paramore with more interesting lead guitar.
Wow.
They're somewhere in
there. That sounds up my alley, considering I think Paramore is like my favorite rock band.
They're great.
That'd be right up my alley, man.
Yeah, I think you would really dig it. I'll after this, I'll email you a Spotify link to that.
Hell yeah.
To that album, because that's great. There's also a band, a couple of pop punk bands called one's called Septaluck, SEPTA Luck. I really liked them, and then another. Speaking of anime, there's a band called Radwimps that did the score and soundtrack for my favorite anime of the last that I've ever seen, called Your Name. They're called Radwimps, and they have like 6 or 7 albums.
Nice.
and they
I mean, I have
do
to check this
everything.
stuff out. I have to check these bands out.
Oh, absolutely, man. I love kind of talking about stuff like this. That's why, and seamless transition, because I hope I'm a good interviewer. Is
Hell yeah.
that's why I've been enjoying your podcast so much. I started listening to One Hit Thunder, and like,
Nice.
and I really dig it, man. I'm curious, if talking to, and we've had some of the same guests, like I had Matthew Milligan on. He's basically my neighbor here in New York City. He lives very close
Nice,
by.
man.
That dude
What a
is
good dude.
awesome.
What a good dude.
I love that guy. That dude's amazing. I'm
Sick
curious.
bass player too. Sick ass bass player.
Oh my God, such such an amazing bass player. Like, he sat. This was before the quarantine happened, and he was like explaining 6-string bass to me and stuff. That dude's spectacular. I was curious, in analyzing some of the episodes you've done and some of the one hit wonders you've done. Do you think there is a consistent pattern that makes a band a one hit wonder, or is it just kind of circumstance that happens?
That's a good question. I definitely have been paying attention to what it is about the one hit wonders. Like, what's the common thread of them? And I don't know if that's like the same question, but a common thread in a lot of them is songs where every part of the song, I'm talking the verse, the pre-chorus, the chorus, where every aspect, take that part alone, and it stands on its own as catchy as hell, memorable. I'm trying to think of like some of the ones that we've done recently where it's like, geez, every single part of that song is catchy. It's like it was kind of controversial calling Rick Springfield a one-hit wonder, because he actually had a lot of hits, but Jesse's Girl is kind of the one that everyone remembers. So we did give that one a pass and did an episode on it. But like, that song is a good example. It's like everything, the verse, Jessie is a friend, she is a real friend of mine, and like, that's catchy. No, start talking cute, and then the chorus is so catchy. Just everything about it is great. It's not like a song, there's a lot of songs that get popular where the verse is kind of whatever, and it's just that amazing chorus that sticks in people's heads. But I've noticed a lot of these one-hit wonders, it's like, yeah, everything about that song, everything about that Harvey Danger song, the verse, the chorus, everything about it is catchy from start to finish. And that's the one thread that I can see. I don't know, man. It's hard to say. I know the one thing that pisses me off is when these people get one hit wonders and then like break up after it, because if you have one hit, that's financial security to be able to continue making music for a long time, not an out to be like, oh, I made my buck, I'm out of here, So
Sure.
that's the one thing that pisses me off sometimes, is when bands do that. But that's not always how it happens.
Yeah, and there's some bands where like the one hit isn't even their best song. There are so many other great songs. I was actually, when I started listening to it, I was a little bummed because I couldn't try to get myself as the guest for this episode, but the SR-71 episode, because they're one of my favorite bands of all time. I will defend that band tooth and nail.
Wow, dude, finally found something we disagree on. I didn't host that episode. I was away for that one, so my producer Matt did that one, and we later talked about it on like a little wrap up episode we did. But like, oh, I'm so on the other side of the fence on that band. That band to me sounds like that sounds like a bunch of record producers got in a room and made a band to exactly what sounded popular at that moment, and just like something about it just, oh. I'm sorry, man. I got to disagree with you.
It's completely it's completely okay, man. If we get along on everything else, we have this one. That's totally cool, man. But what I found interesting, and when I talked to Mitch Allen, we talked about this a little bit, is that one song is a pop punk style song, but I would never call SR-71. I would never call them a pop punk band. I would always call them more of a power pop band.
Yeah,
that
I
had
see.
that kind of one song.
It's a little bit unfair of me to even judge, because I really only know that one song. That one song always just sounded like, and I liked that style of music at the time, but for some reason, I think part of it too for me was like every band that I liked, I had seen them play like, opening for another band, or it's like seen them in a club, or since I was so punk rock, like I knew about all the bands. So if they got popular, I'd probably known about them for 5 years, but that band just appeared out of nowhere in my world. Like it wasn't like I'd seen them like opening tours or like, play, or I had heard them on a comp or like something. I think I
Sure.
was kind of like jaded against them, thinking they were just, some big put together label thing, and
Sure.
so
Sure.
it might be a little bit of my personal whatever coming out, well, younger me's jaded attitude coming out when it comes to them.
Oh, it's again. If we seem to get we seem to be on the same wavelength as everything else. Oh, I
Right.
also wanted to tell you when it comes to good stand-up comedy to check out. If you haven't seen Gary Goldman's latest HBO special, The Great Depression, that is one of the best specials that's happened in the last year. It is simultaneously funny, but also very personal and revelatory. So I would
Huh.
definitely check out Gary Goldman. He's one of like the greatest joke writers I think working right now. He's phenomenal.
Nice. I always have to put on something when I'm doing work where I don't have to, where it's kind of mindless. I have like some stuff I do where it's mindless. So either put on music, put something on a TV I don't have to necessarily look at. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
good recommendation, man. I'm gonna check that out. I just watched the Eric Andre special, which I love Eric Andre. I think the Eric Andre show is like one of the funniest shows ever. The stand-up show, it made me laugh a couple times, but it was more just like him yelling a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
and didn't like it as much as I like his show, I would say, but I still think the dude is amazing.
Oh yeah, he's great. I love him. And you said you Punchline were sitting on you guys have some plans to release something new. I want to make sure that I get this because I think the connection is really solid right now.
Okay, cool.
So do you guys have plans to release anything in the future?
We currently are, so we have 3 new songs completely done, recorded, produced. We went to our producer, Mark McCluskey, recorded them, done. Been sitting on them for a while because we are about to release an hour-long Punchline music special, which is part live show, part variety show.
Mm-hmm.
And like a lot of, it's just like hanging out with us for an hour is what it is. And we've
Nice.
been working on it for years. And so one of those songs we're going to release with the release of the special. But, we thought about releasing songs as an EP, but now we're like, we've started this. Why don't we just turn it into a full length? So I think that is currently the plan, is to finish it as a whole album. And we have one thing that I can say about our band is we have no lack of songs and song ideas. We have a Dropbox of hundreds of songs and song ideas, and it's more of a matter of figuring out which ones we want to do. And
Yeah.
and we've been doing that now. It's like now that since we haven't no one's been able to play shows or anything,
Mm-hmm.
it's given us a lot of time to work on songs that way. We all have our own interfaces and setups at our house, so we can all record independently of each other. We can jump on a phone or jump on a Zoom call to talk about things, but we can just pass around files. And at least for very good demos,
Yep.
we actually tracked a song and released it, a song called Just Stay Home, back at the very beginning of the coronavirus, which turned out pretty cool, especially for recording it ourselves in our homes. We released that back in March, and then we had fans submit like 3-second long videos. So
Uh-huh.
we created a music video out of those for it, and I think it turned out pretty beautiful. And I'm not saying that from our perspective, I'm saying that from the videos that people submitted. They were very touching, and it turned into this very pretty and emotional video for a song kind of about what was going on that moment. That was the fastest we ever went from writing to recording to releasing a song. We did it in like, I don't know, 9 or 10 days. And usually that's a process of like months and months, if not a year. So that was fun.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Like those like purely magical moments where stuff comes together so quickly. And to be able to capture that and share it with people now is amazing, man. That's really cool. Well, I can't wait to hear. I cannot wait to hear more new stuff. And I'll say, just in case I didn't make it clear earlier, I really appreciate you taking time to talk to me and for the many years of music that I've enjoyed. So thanks.
Oh, dude, thanks for having me, man. This was really fun. It's nice to meet you and talk to you, and this has been really cool.
Absolutely, man. Before we get out, can I just for if you would indulge me a bit, could I pitch you 2 songs for One Hit Thunder that I think would be good episodes? If you do not have guests lined up for either of these songs, I've got 3 of them for you.
Okay.
So one of my favorite songs of all time from when I was a kid, I'm Gonna Be by the Proclaimers.
We just did it.
Excellent. Good.
What's funny about that one is, hey, by the way, I'm going to have you on One Hit Thunder, like, obviously.
Oh, dude, thank you.
We got, like, right now we're about, like, 10 weeks ahead. My producer, Matt, on that show, he does a good job of keeping me, like, we'll do, like, whatever. But I'll hit you up in the next, like, month or 2 for sure. Yeah, the funny thing about that, we haven't released that one yet, but we did that one. But our guest, it's this dude Bacon, and he has a comedy podcast called, I forget what it's called, 91 Duck Lane or something. I forget exactly what it's called, but basically he did that song, and as a challenge, somebody challenged him to do like a live stream of singing that song 500 miles in the 99 bottles of beer type style the entire way through, but changing it from 500 miles to 499 miles to 498 miles. And he figured out how long it was going to take, like the length of the song to do the whole song, changing each time. And it was going to take like 30 hours. He was going to do a 30-hour live stream of him. So he was our guest for that episode. I don't think he's done the live stream yet. I think that's happening soon, but
nice.
That's pretty funny.
Oh, that's funny. That's a great song. Another great song I think would be and this one might be kind of a tricky one because they are not a one-hit wonder. They're only a one-hit wonder in America, but In a Big Country by Big Country.
Dude, my favorite one-hit wonder of all time.
That song is amazing. That's one of the greatest songs. Love it.
Dude, it's so funny. Like, that was like, we have a Facebook group, where people like really interact a lot and shit on there.
Yeah.
That is such a polarizing song. People either love it like you and I do, or they hate it. And I don't get the hate for it. There's a live video of Big Country playing that, and it is incredible. They are such like an energetic band. They sounded perfect. Like, dude, that song, it's funny. So we have a Spotify playlist for One Hit Thunder where it's like close to 400 songs. It's all the songs that people have submitted as suggestions in that Facebook group. And one day I made the same thing on Apple Music too, because I use Apple Music, but I made it on both of them. And one day I took all those songs and I put them in order, in my personal order. It's like close to 400 songs from number 1 down to like number 400. And Big Country, In a Big Country, is my number 1.
Oh yeah. I think that song, I think that's a perfect song. I've seen videos of them live too. Like, I think I saw a recent one because I was thinking about it, and yeah, they were so great live. Like, I have a kind of a pet peeve with bands that just kind of stand and play and stare at their feet, but they would like jump all around the stage. The video I saw, a girl came up on stage and kissed Stuart, their old lead singer who's since passed. 2 guys came up and started doing like an Irish jig while they kept playing the song. They were always such a fun to watch live band, and they're still together. I guess they have an old founding member sings with them now, but they were still touring up until I think coronavirus hit. And then
nice.
And then the last song I would put on that list as well. This is one that I didn't realize was written by the person it's written by, but Just the Girl by the Click Five.
I don't know that one.
You don't? Okay.
I don't know that one.
Okay, so I don't know if you would like the entire band because they very much are, I think, a put together pop group.
Right. Well, I know. Hey, hold on a second. I love pop music.
Okay,
I don't know.
I'm sorry.
I didn't really say that. I didn't really say that on this, but that is like, dude, like especially like like the pop music of now. Like I absolutely love it. So that might not be a turnoff for me. I've definitely heard of that band, but yeah, I don't think I know their music.
They were. I'm going to see if I can pull it up while I'm explaining it. So they kind of dressed their image. They kind of looked like mods. They looked like the Beatles, and I didn't know this, but Adam, who recently passed from coronavirus from Fountains of Wayne and Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, he actually wrote that song, and and it ended up with them.
That dude is amazing. Adam Schlesinger is amazing, dude. I didn't even know until after he died that he wrote all those Crazy Ex-Girlfriend songs. Like I watched that show. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah,
and
the songs
are so good, man. And I didn't know that he was writing those. I can't believe that dude died, man.
I know. I was really upset about it. And the only reason I found out that he wrote that song is because I was listening to the tribute album that just came out. And okay, I think I've got here. I think I can avoid getting dinged for copyright if I could get it to. But it essentially goes like, "'Cause she's bittersweet, she knocks me off of my feet." That song.
Dude, I know that song. Okay. Yeah, well, I'll save that one for you then.
Well, perfect.
How about if we do that one? Because Big Country, we have to make Big Country because it's my favorite of all time. Like me and my producer Matt, we've been talking about, okay, when we do that one, we're going to do like a live show, and like that'll be like our 100th episode one or something like that. But yeah, it'd be cool to have you on and talk about Click Five, man.
I would love to come on and talk about Click Five. I will start. I'll start investigating their entire catalog now, so cool. I'll be ready to talk about it.
Yeah, I'll reach out to you about that. I'll have Matt reach out to you.
Cool. Is there anything else we can plug before we get out?
No, I mean that's about it. If people haven't heard us, check out Punchline. We got a ton of music on the internet, and also, I produced Chris DeMakes a podcast from Chris from Less Than Jake. It's a songwriting podcast. We have we've had some incredible guests, like the people that we have coming up. Like I can't believe some of these people like that I've been talking to. Like, punk rock people are punk rock people. It's whatever, no matter how big they are. I just know they're just like a normal person. But some of the people that we've gotten lately, I'm like, damn. So I'm pretty excited about that podcast too. And One Hit Thunder, check out One Hit Thunder. That's the podcast I host.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to keep listening to both of those shows. And thank you again, Chris. I've really enjoyed getting to chat with you today.
Hell yeah, man. Thanks, Will.
Okay, folks, that's our show for today. Thank you for being here. And again, I do apologize for the technical difficulties during this episode. But even that aside, I did not go into that interview expecting to have so much in common with Chris. That was a true delight, and I'm very much looking forward to appearing on One Hit Thunder and discussing the Click Five. I'm really excited about that. I've been doing a little bit of research, and if you guys are curious, you can get Chris's podcast, One Hit Thunder, wherever you get your podcasts. It is a great music podcast. I assure you, if you have any interest in music, you will find it very interesting, or especially if you're a musician. And you can also listen to Chris's band Punchline. They have several albums wherever you get your music. Definitely check them out if you are into catchy, upbeat, slightly synthy, power pop and pop punk. They are right up your alley. And Chris is in general just a great dude. So check out his stuff. He also produces on Chris DeMakes from Less Than Jake's podcast. Chris DeMakes a podcast. So there's a lot of really cool listening out there that Chris is a part of. So definitely check that that stuff out. And thank you for being here, guys. I want to give a shout out, as I always do, to my supporter on Patreon at the awesome producer level, Mary Beth Mooney. Thank you so much for your support. I sincerely appreciate it. And if you guys are curious, you can go to patreon.com/awesomedisaster. Check out some of the exclusive rewards that I have for subscribers over there. And also, if you have a friend who you think might be into this podcast, we are available wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify. And you guys are part of what of the burgeoning success of this podcast. So thank you guys for being a part of that and for listening. I really appreciate each and every one of you. And if you want to message me, I'm on Instagram at WillCarry23 and on Twitter at ComicWillCarry. And thank you guys again for being here. Stay safe, take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you next time between Awesome and Disaster. Take care, everybody.